Hello and welcome to another episode of Hughes of the World. Today we're travelling to the Himalayan kingdom of Bhutan, and it's very exciting. Sorry I'm a bit late starting there. I was just getting some things sorted for you, so I can take on a whirlwind tour of Bhutan. These shows will get more like fluid. They'll get more fluid as time goes on. It's only my 20th attempt at this. So, I can't expect to be a pro right away. Just want to say a big hello to everyone out there. We've got Pineapple Boy saying, the land of Druk today. Yeah. Dragon country like Wales, says Pineapple Boy. I have a tam boot. Gaz Riley saying, I almost went to Bhutan, but found a cheap flight to Nepal from Delhi. Veg Pie says another week, another country. Love it. Jeremy Goff is saying evening, Wanglanders. Joe Hay saying hi there. Hi, Joe. She's not a Wanglander. Lucky. David, who's also not a Wanglander, is saying Bhutan Mankini. You're obsessed with the Mankinis, but you want one in the merchandising. Do you know what I could do, actually? All of these flags that you see in the corner, I actually drew all these flags. I could say I hand drew them, but I didn't. I drew them on my laptop. But that's actually a hand-drawn Bhutanese flag. So I was thinking of maybe for the merchandising, I could get all my flags, because I've done them all. I've already done them. That's the only thing in this show that's actually pre-prepared is all the flags, because I did them years ago. When I was on the Odyssey expedition and possibly bored, I don't know. Miserable here, we call it mucky weather. Ruled by the Dragon Kings, nice title to have. Indeed it is. The dragon hasn't quite got the hang of juggling yet. Well, it's holding 4 gems in its hands. Does anyone know another flag that has a dragon on it and it's not Wales? If anyone can tell me the name of a flag that has a dragon on it, a national flag of a country that has a dragon on it that isn't Wales or Bhutan, let me know in the chat. Hello, mate. What's a Drukit Moggy? What? It's NS... what? It's not safe for work? What's not safe for work? The dragon. A wet cat. Can we import more happiness from Bhutan? Well, I'd like to. Graham's not coming out of his trailer because his tea was too cold. Well, let's see. Actually, no. It's too hot. It's too hot. So, yes. And Lee Collins says hello. And decriminalised homosexuality last year. News travels slowly uphill. Yes, Bhutan. Yes, Pineapple Boy. It was actually 2019. 2019, they decriminalised homosexuality. But then I think it was 2016 when Belize did it, the country with the gayest flag in the world. Love it. This is Bhutan. They're getting there. They're getting there. Come on. This is an old school country. It's pretty old school, as you will find out. It's been called the last Shangri-La. It really is one of the ultimate sort of backpacker destinations around the world, because it was so bloody hard to get to for many people. When I went back in 2010, I think there was only 1,000 people or something, 2,000 people allowed to go every year. Just like the tourist numbers were kept really low. That cap has been taken off now, but I still think that you have to pay $250 a day to travel around Bhutan. However, that money goes to a guide, it goes to where you stay, your hotel, and also the money that goes to the country goes towards education of children. So that's pretty good. It's pretty good. The management of tourism in Bhutan, I feel, is welcomed as a veteran tourist backpacker. I don't want everywhere to get ruined by tourism. I want people to go and visit these places. I want people to go and see the world, but I don't want things getting wrecked by tourism. The beach on Koh Phi Phi, which is where they filmed The Beach, the movie, was ruined by tourism. Mount Everest has been ruined by tourism. There's all dead bodies and oxygen tanks all the way up. It's a bloody junkyard. So, there's places where things get ruined. Starfish Beach in Bocas del Toro in Panama. There's no starfish there anymore because dickheads go along, pick them up, go, oh, it's a starfish, drop it in the water, and the starfish dies. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. Anyway, Bhutan is one of 43 landlocked countries in the world and one of the most isolated. It's only really been open to tourism since the 1970s, so 50 years. Bhutan, as has been mentioned, I think, in the chat already. It translates, the local name for it translates as the land of the thunder dragon. come on. That's cool. If you're going to call your country anything, the land of the Thunder Dragon is pretty awesome. A lot better than Belize last week where I was saying, well, it actually means muddy pool. Yeah, no, land of the Thunder Dragon. Not just a normal dragon, but a Thunder Dragon. Bhutan is the first country in the world with specific constitutional safeguards for the environment. And it's one of the only countries in the world that actually is a carbon sink. It has a net, not just a net zero of carbon emissions. That's got sub-zero carbon emissions, and it actually takes in carbon, as we will see when we look on the map of the country. Bhutan also is the only country in the world where tobacco is banned. Yes, which happened in 2010. And there was the first plastic bag ban in the world was in Bhutan in 1999, although it didn't really take off because people were like, oh, what can we use as an alternative? It was brought in again in 2005 and again in 2009. And eventually, by 2019, it kind of stuck and people were using jute bags and other alternatives to plastic. Traveling around India, when I was there back in 2002, on a lot of trains, they were still using the old clay cups, right? So you got your tea in a clay cup, right? It was a single-use clay cup, and you drank from the clay cup, and then you threw it out the window, right? And then it just decomposed because it was clay. It was made of mud. It literally was a mud cup. Biodegradable. Fantastic. And last time I went to India, back in 2010, well, back in 2012, but 2010, I went back for the first time since 2002 and found that all of the trains that I went on now had plastic cups, and everyone did the same thing they used to do with the ceramic cups, not ceramic, earthware, literally mud cups. They just threw them out the window, and so all along the train tracks was just plastic as far as the eye can see. So yeah, Bhutan, not like that. Bhutan, take that. Tobacco, take that. Plastic, and also don't forget cigarette butts. People finish the cigarette, they throw the cigarette butts on the floor. Then it gets into the water course because it gets thrown into the gutter. And those little suckers are made of, I don't know, they don't burn and they don't biodegrade. They just live forever. I think it's like Chernobyl, a little bit of Chernobyl in your mouth and then throw it. Anyone found guilty of killing a highly endangered and culturally sacred black-necked crane in Bhutan be sentenced to a life sentence in prison. Sentenced to life in prison. In fact, in Bhutan, it's illegal to kill anything. There you go. You're not allowed to kill anything. In fact, the meat is all imported because you're not allowed to kill it. There you go. The capital is called Thimphu. I think people want to say Thimphu, but I think it's pronounced Thimphu. If you want to correct me in the comments, you can do. Has anyone got the right answer? Oh, Glasgow Kiss got it there. Yes, Malta. Malta's the only other flag with a dragon on it, but you've got to squint. It's because they've got the St. George's cross on it, and therefore it has it was given to the island of Malta for valor. After the First World War, Malta being, I think, the only Mediterranean island that wasn't invaded by the Nazis. They managed to fend them off themselves. It's a fantastic effort. And in reward, the cross on the Maltese flag is not a Maltese cross. It is the cross of St. George, which is kind of cool. And he's killing a dragon. So also, it's the only flag apart from Bhutan that has a human being on it. Well, yes, I know that the flag of Montserrat and the flag of the British Virgin Islands do have women on it, but national flags, they're territories. Let's get technical. Let's talk flags. Anyway, so this flag here, this is a thunder dragon, clutching 4 pearls there. And like I say, the local name for Bhutan is Druk Yul, like Yul Brynner, and that means the land of the thunder dragon. And this, my friends, is the thunder dragon. And the colours of the flag, I think the line going up represents the mountains, I guess. And then you've got the orange of the robes worn by the priestly class, and I think the sort of the I think I don't know what colours it is. What is it? Is it orange and red? Yeah, it looks like orange and red to me. And then the other colours like royalty or something. I think it's this idea. You learn about this in the well, I'll tell you about it in the history. But for a long time there was a spiritual ruler and there was a secular ruler of Bhutan at the same time. But anyway, so yeah, Dracul. By the way, the capital is the only capital city in the world, apart from arguably Pyongyang, but they do have traffic lights, so they just don't work. Where they don't have traffic lights. They don't have traffic lights in the entire country, I don't think, of Bhutan. They prefer to have people standing there, doing this. Which is kind of cool. I think it's cool. Yeah, otherwise it'd be a waste of electricity. Also about little fact fans about Bhutan. Not only is it one of the most environmentally conscious countries in the world, it also makes all of its electricity through solar and hydroelectric. I think pretty much all of it, and it actually exports clean energy to India. It's a clean energy exporter, which is really cool. The dragon holds pearls of wisdom in its claws, a Buddhist tradition. That's pretty cool. Graham, what's the president of Bhutan? They don't have a president. They have a king. They have a king, my friend. And the king's name is Jingmi Kesa Namgyal Wangchuk. So there you go. But they do have a king. They have a prime minister. Yeah, it's a constitutional monarchy at the moment with a parliament, just like the UK. But it's only been that way for about a decade. Zimbabwe is going to be the most polished episode ever. It is indeed, man. It's going to be like 3D. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be all like computer graphics and stuff. In fact, I'm not even going to host it. It's just going to be a 3D rendering of me. It was only 1967 when the UK decriminalised homosexuality in my lifetime. Very true. Is there a Pizza Hut in Bhutan? No, David. There is no Pizza Hut, and there is no McDonald's, and there's no KFC. There's no fast food whatsoever. The flag of Somerset has a dragon on it. Yes, it does. But I'm talking about national flags. The government placed a minimum fee of around $200 per day in low season and $250 per day in during high season for visitors to Bhutan. Is that true? Yeah, I just discussed that, Jeremy. When I went, it was $250 a day. I don't know if that's changed more recently, and it might have done as the impact of COVID and everything has taken its toll on the tourism industry. But no, first of all, they had a cap on how many tourists could go in a given year. And when you got there, you got your visa and everything, but you had to pay $250 a day. But that covered your hotel and your guide. And that money goes to educating the kids. We've got Betty Biscuit here. We've got Lee Korn. We've got Jeremy. Grantham has a flag with a dragon on it too. Oh my God. Isn't that where Margaret Thatcher's from? Television's so boring. I'm happy to be here. Well, it's funny because television was banned in Bhutan until 1999, but we will get to that. So the currency is called the the gul. I'm trying to say NG together, so it's kind of like nuggle. Let's say gul, gultrum, nugumtrum. I don't know how to say it. It's the currency. Anyway, I think it's pegged to the Indian rupee, and it's the Indian rupee. You can use that when you're in Bhutan, or you can use the local currency, the nultrum. Anyway, so let's talk about the geography. Should we talk about the geography? Let's talk about the geography. Geography is really fun. Okay, here we go. Let's talk about the geography. Here we go. Here's a map of India. Actually, I was hoping to start with the whole world. So I might zoom out. a little bit so you can see where Bhutan is in the world. Oh, come on, internet. Here we go. So I've got these little bubbles at the top of the screen because it wants to show restaurants and hotels and pharmacies and things. That messes up my screen. Anyway, okay, so this is the world. There's Britain there. There's Africa there. There's South America. There's North America. Okay, this is the world. You know what the world looks like. Anyway, here's the Indian subcontinent. Now, many, many moons ago, this whole big chunk of love known as the Indian subcontinent here, it broke off Africa, what's now Africa, and it crashed into Asia. And see this big line here? That line there is the Himalayas, and that's one of the youngest mountain ranges in the world, and also the highest. It's absolutely astronomically high, topped off by Mount Everest, which is 8,848 meters high. Yeah, what's interesting is the height. The top of Mount Everest is actually limestone. So the top of Mount Everest came from the bottom of the ocean at one point, which is really crazy. Okay, so here's Thimphu here. Here's the capital here. And you'll see there are lots of national parks. And Bhutan is about the size of Switzerland. It's a bit smaller than Switzerland. Similar terrain. It's all made up of mountainous slopes. It's squeezed in, as you can see, by two mega superpowers. It's you can see on the top right of the screen there, you got China, and the Tibetan plateau is here. That's Tibet, and there's India. So you're squished in between China and India, and India and Bhutan got a friendly diplomatic relationship. If you're Indian, you can cross over into Bhutan. You don't need a visa or anything. You don't need a passport. You just cross over, just with some ID. Whereas China, really bad relations with Bhutan. They really don't get on. They're fighting over this region over here, which I'm going to zoom in on. Can you see the dotted line there? I can't see it on the repeater screen. Oh, there you go. See this area here? The pointer's at. They're fighting over this area, and recently China started making this road along here, or doing up this road, and that's worried the people of Bhutan, because they're like, what are you doing the road? Why are you building the road? What are you doing? Go away, China. And so yes, that's Bhutan. That's little Bhutan there. 1/3 of Bhutan's population is under the age of 14. Its median age is 22.3 years, which is very young. At 4,840 feet, Gangkar Pausum is the highest point in Bhutan, and the highest unclimbed mountain in the world. But it's a holy mountain, so you can't go up it, so don't ask. And Paro Airport is the only way to get into Bhutan. I'll just zoom in on Paro there. That's Paro. And you can see the airport. Oh, look, you can zoom in loads. There's the airport there. A good time to turn to satellite mode, I feel. And there you go. And you can see... What? No, that's the town. That's not the airport. Oh, the airport's there somewhere. You can see it's all in the valley, which is kind of cool. So I'm just going to move this this image of the... Where's my map thing? I'm just going to move my image up a little bit because... Oh, no. Come on. Why is it not... Oh, sorry, I'm clicking on the wrong thing. That would be why. Right, that's better. Sorry, I'm being pedantic. I don't like those little weird bits at the top. They were annoying me. But yes, normal service will be resumed presently. So yeah, and where was I? Bhutan. There we go. Okay, so the airport's there. In fact, oh, there it is. There's the airport. There's a little airport sign. There you go. Paro International Airport. That's the only international airport in the country, and it's one of the most dangerous to land in. It is situated in a deep valley, surrounded by mountains as high as 5,500 meters. That's 5.5 kilometers high. And it's one of the most difficult airports in the world to land in. And only 8 pilots, apparently, are qualified to fly to Paro Airport. Oh, my God. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. So, yeah. And as for its greenness, look how green it is. It's quite remarkably green. Let's have a pull out here. I don't know how well you'll be able to tell this from the images here, but basically it is a very green country. I can see the whole of the Himalayas there, where it's not covered in snow at the top here. You can see the rest of it is pretty green. In fact, the country, like I say, it absorbs more carbon than it gives out, and the constitution requires that at least 60% of the land remains forested for future generations. So, you'll get to, if you go there, you get to see friendly locals, smiling because everyone's quite happy there. And wouldn't you be if you lived in a really beautiful country like Bhutan, where they really regard happiness as a big deal. Snow-capped peaks and lush forested valleys and very, very, very fresh air. And there's all over the country there are these fortress-like zongs. They're called zongs, which are old fortresses from back in the day, but they're also used, I think, as religious buildings. But they also have monasteries there as well, Buddhist monasteries. They have dance festivals there called the Sichus, people still wear medieval dress. Men go in a go, which is a knee-length robe to the waist, tied at the waist, sorry. And the women wear a kira. It's called a kira, which is an ankle length. It's like a sari. Anyway, the dress code was particularly strict until the 1990s. The violators, in the 90s, I should say, violators faced strict fines, and today it's more relaxed, but in the 90s, this caused a lot of problems, especially with the Nepalese population, or the people who were descended from Nepalese people who did not want to wear that particular dress. It wasn't their dress. They also made to learn the language of Bhutan, which they didn't want to learn. The language of Bhutan is very, very similar to the language of Tibet. They can probably talk normally to each other. They use the same lettering system, the same alphabet, whereas people from Nepal, different alphabet, different language. People from Sikkim, different alphabet, different language. People from the rest of India, different language, different alphabet. So you can see how that could be a problem if the king says all of a sudden everyone has to wear this particular type of clothing and everyone has to speak this particular language. Everyone's like, what? Can't even read it, man. Can't even read it. Never mind say it. The Bhutan technically has a mandatory national dress code. And also, apparently, the colours of what you wear give away your social status, which isn't great. Right, so back into the messages for a moment before I talk a bit more about the culture over there. Traditional dish in Bhutan. It's Bhutanese curries. It's rice and potatoes. Potatoes are really big there. There was a British guy who went there in like the 1700s who planted loads of potatoes going around. But rice-based curry dishes. That's what you get in Bhutan. So it's pretty similar to what you would get in Darjeeling or Assam or Sikkim or any of the other places around Bhutan. But it's all very vegetarian. It's all very vegetarian. People like meat there, but like I say, it's illegal to kill anything there. They have no abattoirs in Bhutan, as far as I'm aware, and they import all of their meat. Can you guys get me a sign when he reaches Xanadu? Akira, great movie. Yes, Akira is a great movie. There used to be a nightclub in Norwich called Xanadu. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. Have you watched Massaman YouTube channel? No, I haven't, Gaz, but I will. I think you've recommended that to me before. But generally speaking, after these shows, I just fall asleep. They love McDonald's in Bhutan. No, they do not. It's a fib. Okay, so, So, by the way, let's talk a little bit about the culture in Bhutan. Bhutanese manners dictate that you refuse food. This is a big thing in Bhutan. You refuse food. If someone gives you food, don't say, oh, thank you, and eat it. Because it's really rude to do that. You have to refuse it. And then they'll offer you again. You have to refuse again, at least twice. Even if you're really hungry, just refuse it. Third time, you can take it. But you have to, and then be apologetic about taking the food. It's very important. This is part of culture. You've got to know this shit before you go there, because otherwise you make yourself look like a total twat. Inheritance. Here you go. So land, house, animals, stuff. Passed to the eldest daughter. Not the eldest son. Eldest daughter. And apparently a man often moves into a house of his new wife when they get married until he can earn his keep. Which I totally agree with. I've said it before. When men and women get married, it shouldn't be the father of the bride who walks down the aisle with the bride. It should be the mother of the groom who then who drags him down the aisle by his ear and then just throws him. Right, that's it. you have to say set script, which is your problem now. And you walk off. Anyway, Bhutanese people are forbidden from marrying foreigners, which is a bit xenophobic. Also, polygamy is legal. It's not very practiced very much, but it is legal. Whereas homosexuality wasn't until literally 2 years ago. The national sport, archery. Although basketball and cricket are becoming more popular. The state's religion, like I said, it's Buddhism, but it's a particular form of Buddhism called Vajrayana Buddhism, which it follows the Tantric Buddhist text. And the average life expectancy in Bhutan is 69.8 years, as per the World Health Organization's 2015 data. Don't say I don't research these things, because I do. So, the national animal of Bhutan is called a takin. That's a takin. It's a goat antelope. Is it a goat? Is it a bison? I don't know. It's a goat antelope. It's weird. It's called a takin. It's a national animal. Deal with it. Okay, and Bhutan is the only country in the world, as we have alluded to, where they officially measure happiness. Okay, they officially measure happiness. The index is known as the GNH, which is the gross national happiness. And rather than placing the emphasis on the GDP, Bhutan attempts to track the happiness of its population. The United Nations bought into this idea in 2011 and released the World Happiness Report in 2012. The annual report uses Gallup data and ranks countries by factors such as social health, environmental wellness, rather than economic concerns. Despite this focus on internal happiness, the Bhutanese government has been accused of numerous human rights violations against ethnic minorities, especially the Nepalese people of Nepalese heritage living in Bhutan, many of whom were forced out of the country into refugee camps, up to 100,000 figures that I've read. So, apparently the United States accepted 30,000 Bhutanese refugees between 2008 and 2010. Hashtag just saying. But it's okay to be gay there now, which is good. So let's go on to the comments, and then I'll jump into the history, because obviously it's 20 to 11. We'll rattle through these things. Not really. It's based more on distance and being able to concentrate. The entire crowd shouts abuse and insults all the archers as they try and hit a target, says Darian. Yes, I was a games master at the 2012 Olympics in the archery competition. I can tell people useless trivia about Mongolia. Excellent. Darian says, Bhutan archers are some of the best in the world, but the kind of archery they compete in domestically is very different from the rest of the world. Interesting. Bhutan never won an Olympic medal. No, they did not. Did violence go up when they got telly? No, I think it went down, actually, if anything. David wants to know what year Bhutan won the Eurovision contest. I don't. Well, it might be eligible. Who knows? Australia's eligible, although they were kicked out in the semi-finals. So, but no, they have not yet won the Eurovision. Although Eurovision's moving to America now, they're doing a new Eurovision, which is going to be all 50 states of America competing against each other in using the model of Eurovision, which is kind of cool. They have momos the same as Nepal, says Gaz. That animal, is that Boris Johnson without makeup? Yeah, maybe. I never refuse food, says Gaz. York says, erecting a statue of Olivia Newton-John in Bhutan. How hard can it be with unlimited funds? We're not erecting a statue of... Where is the chat gone? What are you talking about? I go away for a few moments to tell you about the culture of a place, and you talk about putting up statues of Olivia Newton-John. I don't know. Why I bother. Anyway, early history. So 1500, 1600 BC. We don't know when, but around then is when the first settlers that we've discovered, sort of evidence of, settled in what's now Bhutan. The history of the place. Oh, Sandy V, £2 super chat. Thank you. We need to change the measure of success from GDP. Yes, Sandy V, we really do, and I think we should be using happiness as a measure. And it's one of the reasons why I really hate Brexit, because it doesn't make anyone happy. It doesn't make the people who didn't want it happy, and it doesn't make the people who did want it happy. It Doesn't make anyone happy at all. Just make everyone really stressed and angry. Not great. Anyway, so back to the history. 746 AD. It's a very important year for Bhutan. Oh, there's another super chat. Thank you, Cricket. Woo! Cricket Averett, $10 super chat. Thank you, Cricket. Make it all worthwhile. Cheers, Graham. Bhutan has one of the best flags. Absolutely. I can't argue with that. Bhutan's flag is freaking awesome. I mean, it's got a dragon on it. It's up there with the Welsh flag. It's just a good flag. If you want to make a flag better, put a dragon on it. It's like if you want to make a film better, set it in space. It's a simple rule. Anyway, back to the history. 746 AD. There was a guy called Guru Rinpoche, who is credited with bringing Buddhism to Bhutan, and he became the king of Bumthang. Anyway, so Guru Rinpoche, basically he brought it over and displaced the original animist religion that was in Bhutan before then. Anyway, so there was a guy called Langdama who was a Tibetan king, and he banned Buddhism in Tibet in 841 AD, and that led to lots of migrants coming over from Tibet into Bhutan. Something that happened quite a lot, actually. There was further turmoil throughout the 10th century. A lot of refugees or migrants came over, and they set up monasteries, they set up schools in Bhutan. And in 1180, the foundation of the Drukpa monastic orders in Tibet, and Drukpa obviously is the Druk is the dragon, the thunder dragon. Drukpak lamas soon moved to Bhutan from Tibet because of persecution from this rival gang of Buddhists called the Gel Ugpa. In 1616, oh God, this is jumping a bit, isn't it? 1616, the first Jabdrung, which is it's like a king, but like a spiritual king. Okay, so spiritual ruler of Bhutan. There's a guy called Nagwang Namgyal, and he arrived in Bhutan, and this marked the ascendancy of the Druk Kagyu lineage, and that's the lineage that the king of Bhutan claims to this day, actually. Anyway, so in 1627, the very first Europeans turned up in Bhutan. There were a couple of fathers. There were a couple of, not fathers, not dads, but priests from Portugal. Fathers Calcela and Cabral. And they met the Jabdrung, and that was the first contact between the people of Bhutan and the people of Europe. So there you go. And then a few years later, in 1639, Tibet recognizes the Jabdrung as the supreme authority in Bhutan. So much so that it wasn't until 1705, so over 60 years later, that that anyone admitted that the Jabdrung had actually died. He probably died in like the 1650s or something, and everyone kept it quiet for about 50 years. Anyway, so you had the Jabdrung, who was the spiritual leader, and then you had the Desi, who was the secular leader. So if you can imagine it like a priestly society in which the Jabdrung is kind of like an ancestral thing, and then they get reincarnated, and then a child will be selected, and they'll say, this is the reincarnation of the Jabdrung, and they will become like the Dalai Lama is. So it's similar to the Dalai Lama thing, where they'll find a child. Anyone who's seen the film Kundun will remember this. They give him a bunch of tests, and he does the tests, and he becomes the next Dalai Lama. It's kind of a bit like that, but also you had the secular person who dealt with money and grubby human things like that, and they were called the Desi. Also, you had the Penlop, who were the regional governors. So anyway, moving swiftly on. In 1772, Bhutan invaded the Cooch Behar, which is part of India, and kidnapped its king. And the British East India Company got involved. So this put Bhutan on the map for the British. And a few years later, in 1776 and 1777, Dr. Alexander Hamilton, he travelled through Punakha and Thimphu to negotiate land disputes between Britain and Bhutan. And, you know, they got on quite well. The British apparently were really impressed with how lovely and polite and nice the Bhutanese were. Fierce warriors, fierce fighters, but also very polite and very nice, and everyone seemed to get on, you know. Wasn't until about 50 years later, in 1826, that there was a bit of bickering going on between the British in India and the Bhutanese over the Duars. These are the South Bhutanese hills, so this is like the foothills of Bhutan, which were fantastic for growing tea, and obviously the British were a bit obsessed with tea. So Britain kind of annexed these Duars, and there was the reason why the history of Bhutan kind of only starts in like the 7th century AD is because in 1828 and 1832 there were two separate fires which destroyed loads and loads of documents, which loads of things that weren't backed up, and so a lot of Bhutanese history was lost to legend, folklore. And so a lot of the history that comes before the sort of periods that I've been talking about, there's magic and there's dragons and there's holy fire and rain and stuff involved in actual historical events, and no one quite knows what really happened, but it's all got a little bit of a magical tinge to the stories of those days, of the olden sort of medieval Bhutanese days. And don't forget, no European even knew the place existed until the 1700s. So pronounced Ringpo Che, as in Che Guevara, means llama teacher or professor, says Andrew Ray. Thank you. Peter says, the flag is horrible when you want to conquer a new territory, very costly for mass production and sophisticated dragon. I like it. You know, when you mass produce something, you don't have to draw it every time. You just photocopy it. Really, really easy. Really easy. Peter says, I've read that one. York says, stuck my head in my dad's car motorbike to get some grease. What? Bill House says, how does he remember all this? Inaccurately. I think the answer to that is no, completely accurate. Graham, Bhutan official religion. I just told you it's Buddhism. So a Brexit benefit is the Wangland flag. Ring Posh, was he educated in Eden? Ring Posh. Well, I think one of the kings of Bhutan in the 20th century actually was educated in England. I think. Anyway, so moving swiftly on. In 1864, there was a dickhead called Ashley Eden, a British dickhead, who went over to Bhutan to talk about diplomacy and treaties and what we're going to do with these southern Bhutanese hills, the Duars. And he comes across as like the Nigel Farage of his day, or the Mark Francois or something. He just came across as a complete absolute gobshite who just upset and annoyed everyone that he spoke to, and he really got everyone's backs up. Like everyone he spoke to, he got their backs up, and never mind the rulers, the leaders of the country. And that led to the Duar War just a year later, in which these hills that had these British tea farms on for a long time, tea plantations, they were basically annexed by Britain the next year as a result of the hoo-ha that went on. But yes, and then, I don't know, there wasn't much going on in terms of diplomacy for a while, but then in 1885, after decades of unrest, a guy called Ugyen Wangchuck, he he took over. He took over and emerged as the most powerful figure in the country. Worth pointing out as well, 12 years later, in 1897, there was a massive earthquake in Assam. And as you saw on the map earlier, Assam is just below Bhutan. It's really, really close to Bhutan. And it measured 8.7 on the Richter scale. And it just flattened a lot of temples, flattened a lot of fortresses, a lot of buildings fell, a lot of people died. Really, really catastrophic earthquake that in 1897. Anyway, so Ugyan Wangchuck in 1904, he assisted with the British invasion and subsequent treaty with Tibet. And as a result, he got really chummy with the British. And in 2 years later, in 1906, he actually met with the then Prince of Wales, not Charles. He met with the then Prince of Wales. And in 1907, when the current Desi, so the current Prime Minister, if you want to look at it that way, the secular leader, died, Ugyan Wangchuck decided, right, this is it. I'm going to become the king of Bhutan, and he was elected. He was elected to be the hereditary king. So he was elected. No, none of his offspring have gone on to become kings since they weren't elected, but he was unanimously by all the different chiefs around the country. Anyway, in 1926, he died. And his son, called Yingmi Wangchuck, he took over. And in 1949, the Bhutanese had a treaty with India, which carried on the treaty that they had already had with the British, but it did give them the Duars back, so they actually got their tea plantations back. Well, it was only about 50 square kilometers. It wasn't like all of it, but it got some of it back in 1949. And since then, they've had a really good relationship with India, like I said earlier. In 1956, serfdom was abolished. So basically, until 1956, they were running a feudal system. And it's one of the arguments that people use about Tibet. They say, oh, well, Tibet was using a feudal system, so it was okay that China came and made it better. I was like, no, because if it had just been left alone, like Bhutan, it would have emerged as another mountain kingdom that slowly becomes part of the modern world in its own way. But we'll get to Tibet in another show. Anyway, so... in 1959, speaking of Tibet, Tibet was invaded by the Chinese and taken over. And Bhutan went, oh shit, as any tiny neighbouring country in the mountains would, with not much in the way of an army compared with the Chinese. And so they started reaching out to other countries. And they moved the capital to Thimphu in 1961. And in 1962, the ninth Zabdrug, he fled the country. So this was like a resurrection. What's it called? Not resurrection. Reincarnation. That's the one. Reincarnation of the Zabdrug from years and years ago. And they fled the country. In 1971, and the king, obviously, the king was just in charge. In 1971, they joined the UN. Became a member state of the UN. And in 1972, the third king took over, and his name was Singhi Wangchuck. Sandy Reid, what's the significance of the yellow and the red on the flag? Well, the yellow, which is kind of orangey, I think that's the priests. The monks. Sorry, the monks' robes is like an orange color, and the red is the monks' robes. I don't know. One of them is the monks' robes, and the other one is like kings. I think it's like kings and religion. I think. I should have looked that up, shouldn't I? In 1974, so just 2 years after they got the new king, the third king, they've only had 5 kings and it's the third, took over. They got their first tourists. Which is kind of cool. Into the country, and obviously, like I've already said, it was kind of very, very restricted. In the 1980s, we had this situation where the king decided that everyone should speak the same language and wear the same clothes. And as I've said, people who didn't speak the language but have lived in the country for generations were like, excuse me, we live here too. And in 1991, the number of refugees was estimated at 100,000 Bhutanese refugees, which were mostly made of people who are ethnically Nepalese. In 1999, Bhutan was the last country in the world to get television. So television came in 1999, along with the internet. And in 2001, they drafted a new constitution, which led up to the abdication of the fourth king in 2005. The announcement of the abdication. He didn't abdicate straight away. But in 2007, they had their first free and fair election, the first democratic election, because they changed the country. So instead of it being an absolutist monarchy, it became a constitutional monarchy, and it had a lower house and an upper house of parliament, and people could directly elect them. And in the first election, even though this is a really remote mountain kingdom, they had an 80% turnout. Can you hear that, Hartlepool? 80% turnout. In a mountain kingdom, in the middle of nowhere. Hartlepool's turnout 2 weeks ago was 40%. Hashtag just saying. Anyway, so in 2008, Yingmi Kesa Namgyel Wangchuk was coronated, and he became king, and he married a commoner called Jetson Pema in 2011, and thereby becoming the most attractive royal couple in the world, like king and queen. I mean, seriously. Oh my god. Yeah, Bhutan. Yeah, I'm down with this. And it's because the old king abdicated. Because I'm old. He's like 50. And he went, oh, sod it. I can't be arsed doing this anymore. You can do it. You're young and sexy. And they went, okay, yep, we'll do that. We'll do that for you, Dad. And he married Jetson. And in 2016, Mr. And Mrs. Jetson, they met Mr. and Mrs. Kate Middleton of Britain fame. So there you go. That happened. Cash Dummy, welcome to level 1. Hello, Cash Dummy, welcome to level 1. Yes, I think you remember. I think Cash Dummy's my first member. Thank you very much, Cash Dummy. You are a legend. Lee Corn says, did that make him the Wang King? Oh, Lee, no, that's just disgraceful. Ooh, Graham, what is that book you are reading? Mulan? No, it's Bhutan. I don't know. Can you eat that much onions, Lee Corn? What is going on in this what? Existential questions. I'm out. Good night. Existential questions? I'm not asking any existential questions. What are you talking about? These names are certainly interesting. Probably pronouncing them all wrong, but I'm trying my best. Who else have we got here? We've got yay for my flaky internet connection and lousy laptop. Bhutan is the gas. You fart out right. No, stop being mean to Bhutan. Bhutan's quite cool. John M says, on the same day as the 2002 World Cup final, the two worst ranked teams in the world played each other, which were Bhutan and Montserrat. Bhutan won 4-0. Excellent. But Montserrat's pretty much abandoned now, isn't it? Since they had that massive volcanic eruption, several years ago. So, although Bhutan no longer restricts the number of tourists per year as they once did, exploring the country can still be expensive. Like we said, all visitors to Bhutan must book through a government-approved tour agency and pay for the full trip before their arrival. So if you're going to go for 2 weeks, you've got to pay at least $250 a day while you are there for the 2 weeks. But yes, one of the more interesting things about Bhutan. Okay, this is just going to take a little turn now for the completely random. There's dicks everywhere. I mean, I'm serious. There's dicks. Like, people, you know the way you draw dicks on like, on your school books when you were a kid? Yeah. Just imagine that on a wall, just somewhere, but it's a proper official piece of art put there by the government. Yeah, all over the place. So, you can find them almost everywhere, and they're in homes and schools and restaurants and stuff. Apparently, penises ward away evil spirits and bring good luck. So there you go. There's dicks everywhere. It's the land of the mountain dick. Yes, Bhutan, you go. You do you. So when I went to Bhutan as part of my journey to every country in the world without flying, one of the important things you got to sort of realize when I talk about my journey is that I was going for the world record for the fastest, and I wanted to set a fast record, so it was hard to beat, and it's quite hard to beat. No one's beaten it yet. It's 9 years now since I got the record, and no one's beaten it yet. So there was about 20 countries around the world that I just literally walked in. I just walked in. I went to a shop. I bought some stuff. I walked out again. I did that in Bhutan. I did that in Bangladesh. I did that in Panama. But I eventually ended up living there, so whatever. I did it in Botswana. But there was 180 countries at least that I did actually travel through. Spent a couple of days there, maybe a couple of weeks, or maybe a couple of months, depending on what happened as I was traveling. But there were a few countries where it was just literally over the border. Can I get a stamp, and then out again? Yemen, Somalia. I mean, come on, I'm not an idiot. Bhutan for me was one of these countries. So it was actually on a day that I went to Bangladesh as well. So I travelled to Bangladesh. I went to a place called Siliguri, which is just down the hill from Darjeeling in India. And I got a taxi to the border with Bangladesh. And then I went back to Siliguri. I got another taxi up to the border with Bhutan. It was only 30 miles, but it took 3 hours. And got there and literally just spoke to the guard who was there. And there's a border town. There's only like 3 places you can officially cross the border into Bhutan. And I just went to the one where it's like a border town. And just said to the border guard, can I come across? He was like, yeah, sure, no worries. I'm like, okay, cheers. I left my backpack in the taxi. I was like, I don't have it, I'm just going over because I want to get something from that shop. And he's like, yeah, sure. Anyway, so we'll go over, and then I do my little thing where I've got my camera and I'm saying, oh, my name's Graham Hughes and I'm in Bhutan, and showing the sign for the chemist or whatever it is that I'm at, and it says Bhutan on it. And I checked my GPS, and yes, I'm officially in Bhutan. Only about like 100 meters, but I am in Bhutan. So I'm like, okay, that's it. That's done. And then I walk back, and the poor guy who let me across, I still feel guilty about this. His superior came over and went, oh, like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, but I just let this guy in, And he's like, oh, you can't do that. This is really bad. And I went, oh, I'm so sorry. And I ended up giving the guys a little bit of money. I didn't bribe my way in, but I kind of like felt guilty on the way back out. So I was like, oh, just take some money. Anyway, that's how you do it. That's how you get to every country in the world without flying. There's some countries you just have to visit and then come back out because it's $250 a day. I was doing it on a shoestring budget. But I would love to go back to Bhutan. So one day I will go back to Bhutan. I'll make it a journey. I'll make it a trip. I'd love to go back to Darjeeling in India, which isn't far. I'd like to go back to Nepal at some point. I've got friends still in Nepal. It is one of my favorite places on earth, and I'd really like to go back there sometime. So yeah, that was my experience of Bhutan. It was very, very fleeting, and so I can't say I'm an expert on the country. There's other places that I know a lot better, a lot more intimately, but I would like to get to know Bhutan a bit more intimately. I would like to spend a few weeks there and really get to explore the place, climb up some mountains and cause some trouble. Although, don't climb up that mountain. What's it called? I made a note of it because I can't remember all these different bloody names for things. The highest mountain in the world, yeah, Gangkar Punsum, which is the highest mountain unclimbed, the highest unclimbed mountain in the world at 24,840 feet, which is insane. Anyway, so a few messages before I go. I think my hour is nearly up because obviously I started a little bit late. Lee Corn says, you mentioned it before, but Lee is on the other side of Manchester. What are you talking about Manchester for? We're talking about Bhutan in the mountains. Anything else you need to know before I go? I'm sure David's got some questions for me. Lee Corn, I'm seeing a pattern in this Bhutan story. Flammable gas, flatulence, thunder dragon. Someone make a joke about that. All the ingredients are there. The flag is 2 colours. The orange colour represents Buddhism, like the robes worn by the Buddhist monks in the Drukpa tradition. I said that. I said it was all to do with monks and Buddhists and priests and shit. In Reykjavik, there was a museum of the phallus. That's true. It's true. The yellow part represents the traditional authority of the Bhutanese leader who has been dubbed the Dragon King. So there you go. It's the secular leader and the religious part together, and it's it's on an incline because you're going up the mountain. It's the Mountain Kingdom. It's a great flag. It's a fantastic flag. It is literally one of my favorite flags in the world. Is the Bhutanese flag. Since orange and yellow are equally on the flag, it means that Buddhism and monarchy have equal importance to the kingdom as their pioneering force. Yeah, for a long time you had the spiritual leader and you had the secular leader ruling kind of at the same time. Well, ruling at the same time, but obviously their magisteriums occasionally overlapped, and there were occasional sort of periods of civil unrest as a result. But now they've got a king, and since the 20th century, so it's one of the youngest monarchical houses in the world. And now they've got democracy. It's one of the youngest democracies in the world as well. It's only about 15 years old, if that, which is kind of cool. So the Lion King, where is Simba? What are you talking about? Lions? What? Anyway, so just to wrap up before I go. Yes. So Bhutan, fantastic place. You, fantastic person for watching this. My patrons, utterly fantastic. My first member of YouTube is Cash Dummy, and you're awesome as well. And yes, I will return next week with let me think. Botswana. No, it can't be Botswana. Bosnia. No, it can't be Botswana. Oh my God! It's Bolivia next week! Yes! I love Bolivia! Yes! Fantastic. Okay. Oh, I'm ready for this. So ready for this. Next week, Bolivia at the same time, same back channel. Well, I hope so, because next week I will actually be going out and scouting locations for the Festival of Europe on Thursday. So hopefully I'll be back and still awake. But it's good that it's a country that I already know a bit about before. I don't do too much research on Bolivia. I can talk for an hour about my experiences there. I'm sure you'll find it exciting. I might show you some of my footage from when I was there. Went down the Potosi silver mines, went on to the Salar de Uyuni, the big salt flats, went down into Ruinabaki in the Amazon basin. Oh God, I love that place. Love the bones of the place. It's crazy. The place, that land, the land that health and safety forgot. Absolutely fantastic. Many thanks again. And don't forget Eurovision this weekend. Oh, yes. I'm going to be Eurovisioning. Isn't bitumen some roofing material? What? Duke Vengeance. Now I've had my geography history lesson, I can go back to being a space courier. Indeed you can. So thank you all for joining me. I will return tomorrow at 1 o'clock for Hughes Round. So please join me for that. And until then, I'll say fair winds and following seas, traveller. I'd just like to say a big, big thank you to all of my wonderful Patreon people. Alexander and Horian and Thomas and John BC and Max and Alexander, Betty Biscuit and Freewheelan and everybody else. You all kick ass. Thank you.